It's just a detail I'm offering the movie for free that they can't do anymore.
For the remake that is certain to come in another 5 years.
For the remake, yes.
Welcome to Recotopia, a happy home for recommended movies, TV shows, music, video games, foodstuffs, and more from two people you can definitely trust. Trustability varies by region, no guarantees implied. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Atkinson and Aaron Dicer.
How did you know?
You were on my list. You didn't think anybody knew about that, did you? God knew. That's why he sent me.
Hello, everybody. It is episode 134 of Recotopia. Today's big recommend is going to be Frailty from 2001. I'm Chris Atkinson, joined by Aaron Dicer.
Hidely ho, murderinos.
Yeah, the murderinos are in effect today. Mm-hmm. That's right. And I'm talking to you, chat. You're the murderinos of my heart. Hello, chat. Thank you for coming out and watching us talk about movies on a Tuesday. I will start us off with our small recommends.
It's no big deal.
Itty bitty living space.
It's so small and light.
It's small, it's tiny, it's petite, it's wee.
I'm going to go back to 1948, and Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, a movie that I considered for comedies through the decades in the 40s, and I think I was like ultra concerned about not being able to find these things on streaming, and now it's just like I want to do this movie, so find it. But I went ahead and I watched this one. This is a lot of fun. This is coming. That at this point, Universal has done monster pictures. Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula, The Invisible Man. They've been doing these for a long time at this point. I think it's about 17 years they've been doing it at this point when Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. And the title is somewhat misleading because they meet everybody in this. They meet Dracula. They meet the Wolfman. But it's a silly premise, of course. It's Abbott and Costello are like delivery men. They work at some sort of like packaging house thing. And there's a very important package coming in from like Transylvania or Europe or whatever. And it's got coffins with Dracula's remains and Frankenstein's remains in it. And meanwhile, Costello is being approached by two women, and Abbott's just like, what in the world is going on? How in the world are people attracted to you of all people and everything? And it turns out that, they have other plans for what Costello's doing. But anyway, for some reason in this movie, Dracula wants to resurrect Frankenstein because you got to have a plot somehow, I guess. But this is just an absolutely silly movie. And if you like Abbott and Costello, you like this old style of comedy where it's just a lot of like, slapstick and just general silliness overall. This is a lot of fun. I think, seeing a movie like this in this day and age, it's easy to see the age of it. It's not like uproariously hilarious to me watching it these days. But man, it's so fun and it's so short too. It's definitely worth a look, and especially since we are getting into Halloween season, if you want to see something that's not as scary or whatever, this would fit the bill.
I haven't seen it in a while. I remember watching it growing up even and thinking it was really funny. And I've seen it more recently than that. It's kind of the Deadpool and Wolverine of its day in some ways.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's this idea, like you mentioned, that the monster movies have been going on for a couple decades, just like Marvel's been going on for a couple decades. Mm-hmm. And they both just kind of parody and, poke fun at, these kind of genres while kind of being that genre itself. And Abbott and Costello are really funny together. My understanding is, like many pairs, they didn't much care for each other off the screen, which is so weird. But
I know, but I don't know if that was. I'm sure there's plenty of documentary evidence about this, but when the funny guy is always getting the laughs and the straight man is always just kind of like, oh, I guess you're there, then
yeah.
People just don't realize that you need a Bud Abbott for a Lou Costello. You need that, and it's just as an important thing. But because Abbott all the way through this is the guy who just doesn't believe Costello no matter what. Because and that's the real fun of the movie. It's like every single time he sees something, Dracula or whatever knows instinctively not to be in the area whenever Abbott turns around or whatever. So it's just a lot of fun in that way. But yeah, I'm not surprised. These comedy teams, all of them, I think, had some sort of problems like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. My first small recommend came out recently this year. Turtles All the Way Down. I saw this a couple weeks ago. Haven't talked about it yet. But wanted to throw it out there. I think this is streaming. I can't remember which service I saw it. I should probably look that up. But this is Isabella Merced and Creed Ciccino, I think is maybe how her name is pronounced. But they are friends. And the central character, Daisy, is one who's having a lot of trouble processing adolescence. So it's kind of a coming-of-age story, but it's a very modern coming-of-age story in which it really feels like these young women are dealing with things that young women deal with today. The ideas of anxiety, mental health, things that weren't as prominently spoken or dealt with in generations past in the same way are being confronted here. And I think it does it in a pretty authentic and beautiful way. And it's one of those movies where I don't feel like there are any easy answers. Like the movie doesn't hand you something on a platter and go, this is how they made it through adolescence. You know what I mean? It lets you live adolescence with them and try to figure it out. And it has some quirkiness to it, a little bit of a sense of humor to it, and yet it still definitely gets serious. And I teared up a few times as well. So I really liked this movie. It made me feel things and think of things, and allowed me to put myself in other people's shoes in an interesting way. So yeah, I liked it.
Haven't even heard of this movie. So,
okay.
I'll have to take a look at where that's
It's on Max. Streaming on Max.
It's on Max. Yeah, absolutely. But Isabella Merced, I've seen her in quite a few things, and wasn't she Dora? She was in the live action Dora, I think.
Oh, that could be. I don't remember, but yeah, that could be.
And she's had a name change over the years too. I can't remember what the issue was there, but anyway, it sounds intriguing. I'll have to give it a look.
Yep. Good stuff.
My second one is I went into the world of Giallo and watched Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace from 1964. If you're unfamiliar with Giallo, it's basically just like it's a murder mystery and horror elements. I think there's a lot of debate as to what really truly defines Giallo movie, but it's kind of, if you see it, you'll know it when you see it, kind of that type of thing. Especially like the use of the color red seems to be a big deal in these movies, even though Giallo means yellow. But the color red is a big deal, and like lavish sets, lived-in sets. Or maybe they even find real places. That's how, like, it's just these places, you just kind of want to live in them. They're like over the top. But this is concerning kind of like a fashion model agency or whatever. And one of the women who works there, one of the models works there, arrives for work, and then a killer in a white, like, complete, like, mask. It's not a mask of anything. It's like a leotard or something like that. Kills the woman, and then she doesn't. Obviously, everybody's like, "Why isn't she shown up for work?" And then they find her body in the building that they work at, and so this mystery starts happening. a diary is discovered, and it seems like everybody has an entry in that diary that they don't want anybody to know about. So therefore, everybody's a suspect, and then suddenly people are dying one by one throughout the movie as it goes on. It has its usual, I guess, surprise ending or whatever, like who the killer is and why they're doing what they're doing and blah, 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 and all that type of stuff. I thought it got a little hokey at the end because it's a lot of like people kind of talking out what they were doing the whole time and just explaining the murder plot. But man, I just dig this. I just dig these type of movies because it's so over the top. Everything about it is so like, the murders are like just are elaborate and like I said, these sets that they keep going through are just like, they're just unlike anything that you actually deal with on a day-to-day basis. These people running through things that are like, what is this place? What is this apartment? This apartment doesn't look like an apartment. Of course, it's also the 60s too, and it's in Italy, so like who knows? But
right.
But like a lot of these places just I love how everything's just so well populated and lived in during this whole thing. And it's a good like who done it, guess who the killer is type movie, everything. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I will put this on my list. However, I'll put it towards the bottom of my list, just because it's not typically the kind of movie that I enjoy.
No, I would not put this on the list of like high priority dicer movies.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. My second small recommend is I think the only Bong Joon-ho movie I hadn't seen, which is Mother.
Oh yeah.
And I loved this. I guess not a surprise. It's so fun going back and watching these old Bong Joon-ho movies because he so clearly understood the art form from the beginning. Like even if you are not immersed in some of the cultural references because, it's not a culture that's yours or, those kind of things, the way he uses the camera, the way he uses his actors, is just, it communicates everything he needs to communicate. This is a story about the ultra protectiveness and vehemence of what it can mean to be a mother. And in this case, the mother is defending her son, who I don't want to give a lot away, but we definitely know from the beginning is dealing with some mental disabilities, and so he is accused of a murder, and we'll just say that it goes from there with her being the only one that seems to care about trying to absolve him from this murder. I was in this movie the whole time. But the way this movie finishes its story and the mechanics of its plot is so good and so fascinating to me, not just on a reveal kind of level or story turn kind of level, but on a thematic level. What it does to this mother through this movie is just really brilliant stuff. The performances are great. And like I said, it's just so well directed. So it's just a really great watch. So if you haven't checked out Bong Joon-ho's old stuff, Mother's definitely a good one.
I have seen this movie and I remember loving it, but it has been since it came out, since I've seen it. What was the year on this? It feels
2009.
Like
so 15 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, it's been since 2009 since I've seen it. But what's great about this is if I do decide to see it, it will be like watching it again for the first time.
Yeah.
I won't remember much about it, I don't think, even though I remember just really, really loving it. Yes, and not to be confused with Mother, the Darren Aronofsky, Jennifer Lawrence movie. This I remember this being good. I can second it, even though I haven't seen it in forever.
It is one of those weird search term things. Like
yes,
you can search for Mother, you're not going to get this movie. You can search for Mother movie, still not going to get this movie.
Nope.
Mother 2009 movie. That's where you got to go.
I don't know where studios started deciding that the single word movies. Like I know that a lot of these movies are called something else at first, and this one is just a translation thing. I'm sure. I don't know if it was called just Mother in Korea, but these studios, like the other day I was reminded that there was a movie called Serenity that has nothing to do with the Joss Whedon movie. That I've seen that one too, and I was like, why did you call that movie Serenity? Like that, I will always have to correct people who think that I'm talking about the Joss Whedon movie when if I ever talk about the insanity that is the other Serenity movie, which happens to have Matthew McConaughey in it.
There you go.
All right, on to our big recommend.
I'm fine. It's just that you're so big.
It's so huge.
It's a good rule, but this is bigger than rules.
It's bigger on the inside.
Is it? I noticed.
2001's Frailty. This movie is directed by Bill Paxton. It was his feature directorial debut. We start at FBI headquarters in Dallas, Texas at 10:25 p.m. Wesley Doyle, played by perpetual bad guy Powers Booth, is here to question a man who introduces himself as Fenton Meeks, played by Matthew McConaughey, who claims to have information in the so-called God's Hand case. Fenton says his brother Adam is the killer, played by as an adult by Levi Kreis. Adam called Fenton last night saying that there are demons everywhere and he can't destroy them all, and that he's fed up trying. Adam tells Fenton to fulfill a promise of taking him to the Rose Garden, which is apparently a future burial site that tells Fenton what Adam is thinking. Adam hangs up on him and then takes his own life. Doyle remains skeptical that Fenton's brother is the God's Hand killer. Doyle calls the sheriff in Fenton's hometown of Thurman, and the woman taking calls there explains that Fenton took his brother's body and stole an ambulance that is currently parked outside the FBI building. But apparently, all will be forgiven if he brings the ambulance back. While Fenton seems to be drawn to a picture of Doyle and his mother, Doyle tries to get him back on track with the story. Flashback to the summer of 1979, where we see the younger Meeks brothers. Matt O'Leary plays Fenton and Jeremy Sumter plays Adam, walking to the aforementioned Rose Garden, which is adjacent to their family home. We are then introduced to their auto mechanic father, played by Bill Paxton. It seems as though Fenton has taken on a parental role with the mother gone, and it's a loving family. In the middle of the night, Dad Meeks wakes up the brothers, claiming he's had a vision from God. An angel told him the end of the world is coming and that demons are coming for the final battle, which is underway. Only they, and a few others like them, even know this battle is currently taking place. The angel calls the family God's hands, claiming that they can see demons when other people can't, and that God would soon be sending them 3 weapons to kill the demons with. Oh, also, don't tell anybody about this. Fenton seems very skeptical and otherwise unable to process what he's just been told. On Dad's way home from work, he is alerted by a beam of light shining down into a barn. It's there that he finds a special magic demon-killing weapon known as an axe. And gloves! And not too long after that, Dad brings home a pipe for knocking people out. And oh yeah, the angel now tells him that God is giving them a hit list of 7 demons soon. Soon is in the very next scene, when Dad tries once again to convince Fenton everything he's been told is true. Dad claims to have seen the angel again in a sequence that only reinforces how crazy everything sounds. Not only that, but the hit list seems to be made up of ordinary people's names. Dad now claims that the gloves are for handling the demons and taking them back to the house, and after removing the gloves, his hands will reveal them for who they are. Unclear on why the gloves are ever needed, really. Fenton now believes he needs to stop his own father, but is unsure how. Adam comes home with the list he claims is a demon hit list, but their dad sees through this and calls out his son for wanting to kill his enemies. The conversation seems to set straight, although is still confusing, that Dad knows the difference between the innocent and the guilty. So he seems to be focused on the one thing, and everything else that sounds crazy he's kind of sane about. The brothers have an argument about whether or not Dad is telling the truth. Fenton seems to make some headway, even getting Adam to think about running away with him. But not too much time to think about that, because Dad brings home a woman he claims is a demon that night. He was led by God to her home 45 minutes away, where he knocked her out and kidnapped her. and now he's going to chop her up despite his son's protests. Dad puts his hands on the woman to reveal her sins. Despite the expression on Dad's face and the scary music that tells us something is happening, only Adam claims to see what Dad sees. Fenton tells Dad that he's going to tell someone about all this, but Dad says someone will die if that happens. Fenton asks Doyle about one of the victims, the only one found by law enforcement. This victim was found mutilated with a note saying that God's hand had taken him. In all the other cases, only a note was found. The first note said that they'd never see any more bodies, that the killer wanted to keep the bodies for himself. Fenton tells Doyle he has an idea where those bodies are, and Doyle surmises the Rose Garden. Doyle tells Fenton to put handcuffs on himself, and they drive out to the Rose Garden. Talk turns to Doyle's mother, who Doyle says was killed by someone much like Fenton's dad, but the killer was never found, apparently leading to Doyle wanting to become a cop. We now flash back to 1979 again. Dad has bought the best kidnapping van on the market. They stalk the next victim outside a grocery store, claiming that God will blind whoever sees them doing their work. Here's the wash, rinse, repeat part of the movie. As Dad kills the guy, they bury him, and Fenton once again talks about running away with Adam. Adam still claims to be able to see the stuff Dad sees when he touches the demons, but the older Fenton says that he just thinks that he does. Adam is so convinced he now wants to tell Dad about Fenton's lack of faith. Dad wakes Fenton in the middle of the night for a dinner table talk, classifying what he does as destroying demons and that he's never killed anyone in his life. Dad strongly suggests that an angel came to him and told him that Fenton is a demon, even though he doesn't come right out and say it. Dad believes his son can learn how to have faith. He starts by getting Fenton to dig a 10-foot hole and asks him to pray. Fenton digs the hole but does not pray. Adam says he's sorry for telling on him, and once again more talk about running away is discussed and turned down. Fenton thinks about it himself but can't leave Adam on his own. Dad comes home and shows he cares for Fenton, especially after Fenton dug so much of a hole that he tore his hands up. Despite a plea for him to use gloves, Fenton goes the Will Hunting route and continues to dig without them because fuck him, that's why. Fenton finishes the hole but tells Dad he never prayed. We now find the hole that he dug is going to become a cellar. They put a simple metal barn over it. The next night, Dad brings home a new demon. This time, Dad wants Fenton to do the destroying, but Fenton runs away to a sheriff's station where he eventually tells the sheriff a crazy tale. The sheriff doesn't believe the story and takes Fenton back to Dad, telling him the story Fenton told. The sheriff does have one issue, though. Why would Fenton make up such a story? So he decides he will take a look at the shed with Fenton, but there's nothing there. Fenton wants to tell the sheriff where the bodies are buried, but the sheriff appears to be done. He's doubly done when Dad comes into the shed and chops him up. It's pretty clear that Dad believes he's actually killing a person here, and he is filled with remorse when they bury him. He blames Fenton's lack of faith on the sheriff's murder. Afterwards, he tells Fenton the angel told him he was a demon. Dad, in a last-ditch effort for rehabilitation, forces Fenton down in the cellar as punishment. On the 7th day in the hole, Dad asks Fenton if God has spoken to him yet, and Fenton gets the utter classic cliche movie line, "There is no God." He's destined to be in the hole. He's destined to be in the hole at Shawshank for the rest of his days. While down there, though, he claims to get a vision from God, and thus is allowed to leave the cellar. A week later, Fenton's ready to enter the family business. After a struggle, they capture the next demon, but Fenton, axe in hand, turns the tables. He was lying the whole time, and he hits his dad with the axe. Dad whispers something to Adam before he dies. Just when Fenton is about to let the potential victim go, Adam takes the axe and destroys the demon. Fenton tells Doyle that they buried their dad in the Rose Garden and went to the sheriff's office a week later to tell them that their dad just didn't come home one day. This is also the night in which Adam promised Fenton that he'd bury him in the Rose Garden if he ever destroyed him. And Doyle says, Adam promised to do that if he killed you? Wasn't it the other way around? Now Fenton says, not killed, destroyed. And then, dun dun dun, reveals he's actually Adam, not Fenton. But Fenton became the God's Hand's killer in real life, later in life. Still handcuffed, he shows Doyle Fenton's burial site. When Doyle remarks that there are too many graves here, Adam says Fenton buried people in his basement. I bury demons here, suggesting that Fenton is one of many demons in this garden. He explains that Dad saw the demon in Fenton but was unable to kill him like God wanted him to. Because of this mistake, it cost him his life and other people's lives. One day, when Fenton became a serial killer, he knew that Adam would come after him, so he started leaving the God's hand notes to lure him in. But ever the stickler for God's rules, he had to wait until God put him on the demon hit list before he could finish the job. Adam tells Doyle he's always believed, so we finally get to see what he saw during Dad's demon-touching episodes, which is basically the David Dunn Unbreakable type shit, in which he can see their crimes. Doyle now threatens to kill Adam right there and now, and then Adam tells Doyle that won't bring his mother back. This taunt makes Doyle lunge in to hit Adam, who touches him and sees that Doyle killed his own mom. Adam is able to subdue Doyle even while wearing handcuffs and eventually gets a key to take them off. Adam reveals that Doyle is on his demon hit list. After throwing Doyle into an empty grave, Doyle tries to tell Adam that the FBI will find Adam, but Adam says they'll be looking for Fenton because that's who he's been posing as this whole time. And they'll find Fenton's house full of evidence. And besides, even if the FBI remembers his face, God will protect him. And that's what happens. At the FBI, the one guy who should remember, Agent Hall, can't. Even the videotape is showing static wherever Adam goes, and the FBI guys utter an actual proper use of the curse, God damn it. They raid the actual Fenton's house where they see the evidence of him being the God's Hands killer, and that Wesley Doyle was his last victim. Also, Fenton appears to be dead in the basement as well. Hall, who has no memory about Adam, goes to the Thurman Sheriff office, where we see that Adam is the sheriff. He tells Adam he needs to talk to him about Fenton, that he was the famous serial killer that they've been looking for, and that he was found deceased in the basement. Adam shakes Hull's hand and tells him he's a good man. We also find out that Adam married Becky, the woman who confirmed Adam's nonsense with Doyle at the beginning of the movie when he called the sheriff's office. She obviously knows what Adam does and believes in it. And we end on a shot of the happily married couple who work in law enforcement and wait for orders from God to kill more demons. And that's it. That's how the movie ends. Aaron, what did you think of Frailty?
I liked this movie, really liked this movie the first time I saw it a couple months ago. Second time through, yeah, I love this movie. It got better for me. It is one of those aha movies the second time through. And, reminds me a lot of Sixth Sense or Fight Club or, some of those others in that way. Like the second viewing is so rewarding. I will say my first time through this, I actually kind of didn't like the movie for most of it because it felt very cliched to me. Oh, here's another religious nut that's killing people, blah, 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 blah. And it was only at the end that I realized that this movie had been using those normal thoughts against me the whole time because something else was going on. And it's kind of a, it's a superhero movie. This is a superhero movie shot like a, a serial killer movie. And that's just really fascinating because when you think of what this dad is saying, under the context of watching it the first time, you are viewing it as an authentic, real-world thing that's going on, and we've heard of these kind of people. So, in fact, I think the movie is slightly based on a real-life example of a father and son serial killers who killed a few people because they thought God wanted them to. Like, we've heard of this thing.
Yeah.
So we put it in the real world naturally. When the movie at the end goes, nope, this is a supernatural world where they're right and these supernatural things are actually happening, then you realize, oh, this is there are superheroes who literally have this power. Like this is, I couldn't name them because I'm not a comic book guy, but I think maybe maybe Ghost Rider or somebody like that. I guess I don't know, but like the same kind of idea where they're, or Blade would be a vampire version of this, right? Like, has the power to see the unseen and to take care of the terrible people because these people are terrible. They are demons in, what they're shown to be doing. So yeah, I definitely liked it even more the second time through, especially because of the way it plays with your expectations and uses those against you. Also catching so many of the clues the second time through, and I'm sure I'm still missing them.
Yeah.
One of the big ones that I read a little bit about was the blood. I don't know if you've seen this. When any of the demons are killed, there is no blood, no splatter,
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
nothing. You don't see any blood on the people. There's no blood shown. The first blood you see in a kill is when he kills the sheriff because he's not a demon. And so and maybe God is not protecting them from, the blood splatter or whatever. But it's definitely a choice the movie is making to kind of hint you in that there is a difference here, And I do remember, watching it and feeling like that sheriff murder felt more visceral, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then, kind of looking back going, oh, that's intentional in many ways is kind of one of those fun little clues. There's a moment towards the end where, or not towards the end, but when they're getting in the car and Fenton doesn't want to be helped into the police car. Well, that's because if he touches him, they will reveal themselves to each other. Like he will know that he knows he's a demon. Because that guy killed his mom or whatever. So that's interesting. There's just a lot of those clues that I noticed this time through that I hadn't really picked up on before. So that was always fun. Did you also notice that the kids at the end, like as we're zooming out from Matthew McConaughey and I'm assuming his wife that we never meet walking down the road, there are a couple kids that come by on scooters. They are the two actors that played the
I didn't notice
the brothers as kids. And Paxton said he did that as kind of a way to indicate the circle. He kind of keeps going,
which is fun. But I think her being Becky, the woman that he's married to, being pregnant. I think she's pregnant at the end. Would suggest that as well.
The same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but that is interesting. I did not notice that.
Yeah. So the other thing I thought about a lot this time through was the title, Frailty, which is it doesn't reveal itself, immediately. It's kind of one of those you have to think about, and feels a little abstract, so you can kind of put your own stuff on it. But it feels like it's talking about, this time through, I really connected to the idea of the frailty of morality with what this movie is doing to you, where it's saying you think you understand right and wrong in the universe that you see, but it's not the universe you think it is, and that right and wrong are frail. Family bonds are frail. Like there's just a real a frailty to just humanity and our understanding of the world. And so that kind of played with me a little bit this time. I also read a little bit of trivia that I wanted to mention. James Cameron, actually in one of the original cuts that he saw, they were revealing these visions as he was touching them the first time. So like when he touched, the guy the first time, it would reveal that he picked up a little girl or whatever. And, and so Cameron said, no, you have to wait to the end to reveal that. Otherwise, some of the audience is going to be too clued into, there's might really be something here, because it won't look, they're not going to see that as his imagination. They're going to see that because it's on screen in front of them as something that actually happened. And so he suggested to move all that stuff to the end, and I think that's a great,
correct choice.
A correct choice. I do have a question for you. One part I don't understand. We see Fenton, the real Fenton, right at the beginning, take his life. Did that really happen, or did Adam kill him?
I think Adam killed him,
That's
because we see, because that's what he reveals at the end, because he says he had to wait for him to be on his list, and then that's when he shows up to the house afterwards.
Right.
And yes, I think the story that he tells at the beginning is a ruse to get him in with trust with the FBI guy. So that one story tells him, hey, I know what's happening. I have the body, and I can lead you to wherever his victims are. And that gives, and once Doyle calls the Thurman Sheriff's Office, and they just kind of say, oh yeah, that crazy Fenton or whatever, that gives it even more credence. Of course, that girl Becky is working with of Adam the whole time. But yes, I do believe the entire story at the beginning is a lie, so that he can get in. Weirdly, he can get trust from Doyle, the FBI agent, at the beginning, because if he goes right off and says what really happened, then now he's murdered somebody who is technically innocent in his eyes. So
that's where I landed too. And the only reason I still had questions is because, unless I'm missing something, it's the only actual visual we're given on screen that is false, right? Like everything else I think we see on screen is the true thing that happened. Even the story he's telling about growing up in childhood, it's all true. It's from a different perspective. Right. And by the way, the hair color should have been another clue. Like the hair colors don't match the boys correctly. Anyways.
Yep.
So it's the only piece of visual evidence we see that actually didn't happen in the movie. And so I wondered if maybe he allowed him to kill himself in that moment, in that really happened, or if it's just made up, and for whatever reason Paxton was like, well, we can just lie to the audience on this one.
I mean, I guess that's possible, because he's still lying about a few things there, though.
Yes.
And I always wonder too, when you bring something up like this, like if that, considering all the careful details that you've just talked about the blood and not touching Doyle and all these other different things, like it would seem like if he was not telling the truth, they would not show a the visuals of it and everything,
right?
And we'd get kind of what we get 13 years later with True Detective, where Matthew McConaughey is locked in a room getting interrogated the whole time, but which would have been compelling in its own. I mean, I guess if you knew what that True Detective would look like 13 years later, maybe you would have done it that way. But yeah, that may be a choice that they left in, and just. Or you're like you're saying, he said, I'll let you kill yourself, and that all the things still fit there, but he's still lying a little bit. So
yes, no, I'm not. He's lying the whole time. What I'm talking is the visual doesn't lie to us, except in that one moment, if that's not what really happened. The only other thing I would mention is the axe is named Otis, and there's lots of internet theories for why that is. I don't believe the dad's name is ever given, so some people think that the dad's name is Otis, and so that was a sign. Other people think it stands for Only the Innocent Survive. I haven't watched this with the commentary, but apparently. Maybe it was in the commentary. I can't remember. I got this from IMDb, but apparently Paxton said that he met a homeless man and wanted to help him out, but he didn't want charity, and so he bought the man's name rights, and his name was Otis, to put in the movie. So he was able to give him money for something as opposed to charity. But that could be, complete Hollywood BS. I have no idea.
Right.
But anyways, it's interesting because it's never talked about in the movie. Why it's called Otis. So I found that fascinating.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of things in this. I debate whether or not I'm glad they don't go into the weeds about a lot of things, or if I wish that I could see what's going on the entire time, because the old adage, God moves in mysterious ways, is not is no more prevalent than in this movie, because people we know are demons. They can't kill them until God tells them that they put him on the hit list, and you sit there and go, why not? And is everybody who murders and everybody who does anything, are they all demons, or is it just a select few? I kind of wish I knew, because to say that all humans kill only because they have demons in them is kind of a weird thing to say, I think, but it's interesting because I think if we know more about all of this, it's gonna start not being as interesting and anymore. I'm kind of glad they didn't go into the weeds as much into that, but I still kind of want to know what they think is going on there.
I agree. I'm glad they don't spell it out. My instinct is that no, not everybody that does bad things is a demon, that these specific beings are demons, and that's part of the reason they're doing bad things. And that's why it's so dependent on the connection to God to tell you who it is, kill the people he tells you who it is, then you're protected. People won't remember who you are. Videos will have static on your face, all that stuff. So
and it almost seems to suggest that God doesn't know everything in this because think about Bill Paxton getting the vision, and the angel says your family is a bunch of demon killers, but one of your sons, he's a demon. He doesn't tell that right off, or at least his dad doesn't reveal that at the beginning. I think we keep seeing the angel came to me again, or the angel came to me again. How many times is the angel really coming to him? Did he find out that he was a demon before he revealed that he was a demon? I don't know, but it's a really interesting to me. It's just a really interesting thing that they keep kind of in the background, and I think again it probably is a better movie for it. I did like the beginning of the movie where you have Adam singing that I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, and he's trying to get Fenton to do it, and it immediately tells you that Fenton is not on board with any of this. I love that little detail because it seems like a very innocuous, but it clues you in immediately as to what's going on with all of this.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I was for certain too when they revealed that the woman her name was Becky, that was the girl they were talking about at the beginning of the movie that threw up, and the little girl that threw up was beautiful. But no, that girl's name was Katie. I went back and I was like, I thought that would have been such a nice detail that they brought in, that it was this girl Becky, and then he married Becky 20 years later. I thought that would have been awesome, but it's just a detail I'm offering the movie for free that they can't do anymore.
For the remake that is certain to come in another 5 years.
For the remake, yes. What do we think about the performances in this? Because Bill Paxton is his usual self in this. Like, I love Bill Paxton, but there's so many affects that he has when he's doing his performances that I recognize in every movie he does. And sometimes it's distracting because he's playing different characters in these movies, but he still does the things all the other different characters do.
Part of the reason I wasn't enjoying it most of my way through the first time was I thought Paxton's performance was pretty poor. And that's okay. It doesn't, not every performance has to knock me out. I thought the kids were surprisingly good.
Very good.
That's always a difficult thing to pull off. And Matthew McConaughey always works for me. There's something about his presence that just does it.
The problem with McConaughey is that he was in a string of bad movies that, much like Nicolas Cage there for a bit, brought his believability scale down, or his likability scale down. But in the midst of all of those movies that he did that were terrible, he would do something like a Frailty or whatever that reminded you of how great he was. And of course, he didn't have the so-called McConaissance until 2014. So I think McConaughey's great in this, and it reminded me so much of, we said it last week, of Lone Star, of how he's playing a character that, in a different timeline from where the story, where he's in a different timeline from, there's two different timelines, and he's in, he's playing an older version this time. He's playing a younger version in Lone Star. But it reminded me of that because Lone Star is another Texas movie as well with murder at the heart of it. But anyway,
I think this movie is even better and more legendary, like more well thought of, if somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio is, playing that, or an older Leo, or like a Joaquin Phoenix, or somebody who can play both sides of that believably. Kind of. What about like John Malkovich? In that dad performance. That's a different movie, but could use again the audience's expectations against them a little bit.
One thing that Bill Paxton brings to this, though, is the constant tilting of your believability of what's going on.
Sure,
because he's so the way he is, and he's this kind of performer. There's no way you're going to believe what he says, and that's to the movie's benefit, to not believe anything that he says, because it does seem like he's just a crazy person throughout.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing. If you get a better actor, does it serve the movie as well as Paxton does in this? But anyway, food for thought. Think about that. Give me your answers next week. All right. Let's go to our super secret double feature.
Be very, very quiet.
Secret? What secret?
Our dirty little secret.
I tell you something I've never told anyone.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There are lots of movies that kind of fit bits and pieces for me here. Tonally, I felt a little of Prisoners. Prisoners kind of feels like tonally it might work here. But I ended up going with something I think overall has more connecting points for me, at least, and that is Fallen. Denzel
I thought about Fallen during this too. Yeah,
Denzel Washington is it's a reverse of who we're focusing on, right? Denzel is more the Powers Booth of the situation, although we find not with what we find out about Powers Booth, but just the investigator kind of part of it. But yeah, this one has Denzel and John Goodman and Donald Sutherland and James Gandolfini's in there as well, and has
Elias Koteas.
Yeah, has that supernatural. All the things you thought were, fake are actually real kind of, thing going on with it. And it has just a killer ending.
Yes, it does.
It has a 1, 2, 3 punch of an ending that is just wonderful. So, so Fallen
Talk about gem that probably needs to be big recommended at some point. It's this one, because this movie got buried back in 1998, I believe, is when it came out. It just, you kind of think of like almost all Denzel movies being a hit in one way or the other. I don't think this one registered for a lot of people. But that's something I want to revisit one day, is Fallen, for sure.
Yep.
All right. What will be next week's homework, Aaron?
Well, it's always a fun time when Aaron tries to pick horror movies.
Yes.
Next week, I was looking back through some of my favorite, horror movies, darker movies, in this case, literally darker movies. And I haven't watched this in a long time, but remember being blown away by it. So I want to revisit Pitch Black.
This is crazy. I was like, at first I was like, Pitch Black. You mean the Vin Diesel? I had to actually look up and see if there was another Pitch Black.
Did you hate this?
No, I really like this movie a lot, actually. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the movies that came after, the Riddick movies that came after.
Correct.
Yeah, this is really good. I like Pitch Black a lot. The director, David Twohy, was like, he was a star screenwriter all the way through the 90s. I think I can't remember which ones he did, but he was one of those go-to screenwriters for a while. And then he started doing he started directing his own movies. And this was one of the first, if not, it was like one of the first ones he did, I believe. But But yeah, this is a good choice because I haven't seen this in forever. Yeah, it'll be good revisiting it. It's a big, blockbuster type movie, which we don't usually do, but like, I think it's kind of gotten forgotten a little bit.
Well, and it's kind of gotten pushed away because Vin Diesel has so, locked himself into this certain kind of actor that only does Fast and Furious movies and, those kind of things. And you forget when he's put in, early on in his career in this kind of role that his thing works, in certain ways. So, yeah, I want to go back and visit it because, it's one of those movies, and you probably have these too, where you remember thinking it was great, like not just good, but just like great. Like I really loved watching this movie. And then as time goes on, you're like, really? A Vin Diesel blockbuster horror movie you loved? And so I'm excited to go back and watch it and either confirm, yeah, this is why I love this, or, oh, I have different eyes now and, see it differently. But I really did love it when it came out. So, yeah.
All right. This will be fun to watch again for sure. I remember running this movie as a projectionist. I remember cinning this movie. So like, I have a history with this one. So
nice.
I'm looking forward to doing it again. I think we have time for one question, maybe.
Okay.
Let's see.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
What are some of your favorite movie moments where we learn one character is holding all the cards without the others even knowing it yet?
I have two examples of this from the same movie. The same movie does this twice in really, really beautiful ways, in my opinion, and that's Princess Bride. The first example is the poison scene, where Wesley is holding all of the cards, but he has no idea because he developed an immunity to iocane powder.
Yes, he did.
So the whole cup game didn't matter at all to him. Put it in both of them.
Yes.
So that was the first. And then there's another one later where the drop your sword scene where he's, been mostly dead for a while and still may not have all his faculties. So, in that moment, the only person that knows if he's really back is Wesley. But because he's able to say "drop your sword" with such authority, Humperdinck immediately gives up and sits down to be tied up. And then, of course, he collapses, and Humperdinck was like, "I knew you were bluffing."
Yeah.
So both of those moments really fit this bill for me. So I thought I'd mention those.
Those are definitely good ones. I love in Mission Impossible when Phelps, played by John Voight, he has a gun trained on Ethan, and just before he kills him, Ethan reveals that he's wearing the glasses with the video camera on it, which reveals that he's alive after all, and he won't be able to get away with anything. I love Tom Cruise's performance, even though I can't believe Phelps just allows him to just like do all this stuff to reveal the things or whatever, but he's like, I'm not the only one who's seen you alive. Dun, dun, I love all of that. Good stuff. Over in the chat, which I don't know if we're not getting as many comments as usual or if not as many people are in the chat today, but Castor throws out Ocean's 11 as one of those that where they're holding all the cards, and that's definitely a good one. Of course, they're always holding all the cards. It gets annoying later on in the other movies where it's like, but I did this, but I thought you would do that, so therefore I have all of this it planned and everything. So it's one of those.
Of course, you could go with this question literally and go Casino Royale, with the holding all the cards.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like everybody just happens to get a full house and a flush. When you get the straight flush, amazing.
What was the movie? What was the movie recently where somebody had 5 aces in their hand or something? I can't remember. It was one of those. Was it John Wick or a John Wick-like movie? Anyways, I shouldn't have brought it up if I didn't remember the title of the movie. But
that's vaguely familiar.
poker scene
right
in that movie. So anyway,
Link says, would you consider Endgame with Iron Man at the end? I don't know if he has the cards the whole time in that.
He
scene.
has them for long enough that there is that feeling. Like he has the rings for long enough, even though it's just for a few seconds, that there is that feeling of Thanos didn't know. Like Thanos' reaction to that information is what this question is about, right? Where it's like, oh wait, I didn't realize you actually had, gotten those. So
right,
maybe that wasn't John Wick 4. Castro says it might have been John Wick 4.
Yeah, it feels like there was a card game, I believe, in John Wick 4 when he's trying to get the family name thing going on or whatever that is. I can't remember myself.
Yeah.
The Tatsu also says the same with Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Sin City 2, also poker. Now, I don't think I've seen Sin City 2 because obviously I didn't like the first one enough, but I don't remember part 2 at all. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Now, we have a schedule change for next week. Aaron is going to be overseas.
Indeed.
And so we're going to be doing our show on Monday. I believe it's at 3 Central. Is that correct? Or is
correct.
Yeah.
Monday, 3 p.m. Central.
3 p.m. Central. So do the math from wherever you are. And that's when we'll be doing it on Monday, October 7th. And we will be doing the same thing the following week as well. We'll be doing that on October 14th. Doing the pod. So keep that in mind for next week's live show. But that's going to do it for today. Pitch Black will be our homework for next week. Remember, it's Monday. And that's going to do it. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
See ya. Bye. Be a part of the live show by being a member of the Sin Club at Patreon at patreon.com/cinemasins. Chat with us on the Cinemasins Discord at discord.gg/cinemasins or Cinemasins Twitter at Cinemasins, and email any comments or questions to Recotopia at cinemasins.com. That's RECOTOPIA at cinemasins.com. I'm going into this playoff year the same way I did in 2021. I have no faith in this Braves team. Like, it's a miracle that they made it. And I have no faith in them. And I had no faith in them in 2021. And they lost game 1 of the first series. And it was like, pretty much. And then they won the next 3. And they went on to the National League Championship Series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers are such an awesome team. How are we going to beat them? They beat them. And then they played the Astros, perennial World Series contenders, Houston Astros. Like, how are they going to beat this team? They beat them. So, it's one of those things where, like, you really don't know. Last year, the Rangers, nobody outside of Arlington was picking the Rangers, probably.
Yeah.
And even people in Arlington were like, well, good to be here. And then they end up winning the World Series. So it really, truly, in baseball playoffs, yes, everybody has a chance. It doesn't matter what is going on. And you're talking about dynamics changing. When you win game 1 of these short series, you can afford to do things you wouldn't do earlier. That's why it's so much pressure involved, and I still consider 7-game series short too. That's still a small sample size for determining a best team. So
that's I was just, who was I just talking about? Maybe my brother talking about the series lengths, and that 5 games is probably the way to go, because even 7, you're still, like, if your goal is to have the best team win, right? That's what you think of by extending the series. But you'd have to get a bigger sample size than even 7, to do that. And nobody's going to do a 9-game series.
No, you can't go the actual large sample size of the regular season, but they basically decide that's not worth anything by the time of the playoffs. And they give you a couple of perks if you win, right, if you have the best records, but like, those couple of perks have shown not to be very advantageous, especially in the new playoffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like, an actual playoff that would determine the best team that has the correct amount of sample size, you're not going to do that. So yeah, maybe going, well, I don't know. I don't like 5 games at all because it's so incumbent that you win game. I think game 1 is so important. I mean, there's been plenty of teams that get past losing game 1, obviously, but you as the team who's won game 1, like I said, you can do a lot of things you normally wouldn't do in a regular season, and kind of tip the leverage on that team that's lost. So
the extreme example of the other direction is football, right? It's one and done. It's single elimination, or March Madness, or something like that, where it's it's a 1-game series, and that's kind of the extreme example. And those games are so intense, and like you mentioned, a 3-game series, every game is still that intense, because winning game 1 basically just means you have to win 50% of the remaining games. Yeah. You know what I mean? You get a coin flip, right? And then game 2, no matter who won game 1, game 2 is do or die for somebody. So, and then no matter what, game 3 is a deciding game. So like every game is that intense. And so there's something fun about a 3-game series. That with a 7-game series, sometimes it gets a little boring. Somebody's up 3-0 and you're just like, can we just, call it?
Yeah.
So
and I agree, especially since it's only happened one time. But see, the thing is, you live for that one time.
Yeah, you do.
It does happen.
Yeah, you do. My son was being born as Game 7 was ending in the in the World Series. So the Red Sox won the World Series for the first time in forever.
Yeah, and that would have been Game 4 because they swept the Cardinals.
Yes, it was Game 4. Correct, it was Game 4. Yeah.
But like that was like they were down 3-0 the previous year. By the way, this is the amazing context of this. The previous year they had the Yankees against the ropes. Should have won Game 6. I believe it was Game 6 that they should have won because they had Pedro pitching, and they had the lead, and then the manager didn't take Pedro out soon enough. He went out and asked Pedro, "You got it to get through this inning?" And Pedro, of course, said, "Of course I do. I'm a competitor." And he gave it up. And we were so close to in 2003. I'm always going to lament this, to having a Red Sox Cubs World Series with both teams having nearly 100 years of futility playing each other in the World Series, and both teams had the lead in their respective championship series, and Game 6 fuckery happened. And the last time the Tigers went to the World Series and the Cardinals beat them, like that was the most annoying World Series.
It was so devastating.
The Cardinals, the Cardinals that year were like that was
06, right? Wasn't that 06?
Yes, 06. They truly backed into the playoffs. They were not playing well at all. It's sort of the exception to the quote unquote rule that you have to be playing strong to go in when you're going into the playoffs. But I don't think anybody had any hope for the Cardinals winning a series, much less the World Series. And they go in the World Series, of course, and then like unbeatable somehow all of a sudden. And that Tigers team, so good.
It was
too.
So good.
It had so many great players on it. Like, how in the fuck did they lose that?
I mean, before you even get to the hitters, Scherzer and Verlander, you got them both for a few years there. How do you not win a World Series? But
in their primes.
In Cabrera, I mean, that trio alone should have guaranteed. There are no guarantees though, and man, that was a tough year. The World Series was tough. And then there was another stretch for those guys in 11 through 14 that they probably should have done something. I think the Yankees pulled off a miracle in the ALCS one of those years that I thought they were going to win the whole thing again, but.
And then you had no, they didn't. Did the Tigers? The Tigers did not make it back to the World Series after that, did they?
No, I don't. I know. Again, that year that the Yankees, I think it was. Or was it the Red Sox? It was the Red Sox because I think it was Poppy. I think it was Big Poppy that hit a home run like in the 9th inning or something. I can't remember.
As he was prone to do. He did that quite a bit.
I have erased it from my mind. But yeah, so it's been a decade since we've been there, and today we are there. So it'll be fun no matter what. Nobody expected this team to be there. Basically traded away our best player at the midpoint.
Yeah, who was it that they traded?
I don't know.
Remember.
I think it was a pitcher. It was, a really great pitcher or something, but I can't remember.
I think they traded Jack Flaherty, didn't they?
It might be.
Because I think Flaherty started off the year amazing for the Tigers, and then he got on the. I think it might have been Flaherty. I'm not sure.
Could be. I should know. I do know they just called up some guy that's apparently one of the best prospects in baseball. Has a 3-digit. Pitch and whatever. But anyways, it's fun getting involved in baseball again. I've been enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.